January 20th, 1942. 8,000 feet above Simpson Harbour, Rabaul. The air is a sticky, vibrating blanket of heat. Flight Lieutenant H. J. Brooks. Brooks grips the joystick of his CAC Wirraway, his knuckles white under sweat-soaked flight gloves. Below him, the emerald green of the New Britain jungle crashes into the perfect turquoise of the harbour, where the Australian cruiser HMAS Australia sits like a painted target. Brooks smells the oil, the hot metal, and the faint, sickly sweet scent of the jungle floor baking in the sun. He hears the familiar throaty growl of his Wirraway's single Pratt & Whitney R1340 Wasp engine. It's a sound of comfort, of home, a sound he has associated with training, with practice runs, with lazy figure eights over airfields back home. It is not a sound he associates with war, because now there is another sound, a new sound, a deep, multi-layered drone that seems to come from the very sky itself. His observer, Sergeant F. J. B. H. Sammy. Reed snaps his head around, his voice crackling over the intercom, sharp with adrenaline. Skipper, 9 o'clock high, 9 o'clock high. Brooks banks the Wirraway, his stomach lurching. The trainer-like aircraft, with its wide-set landing gear and corrugated tail surfaces, feels sluggish, heavy. It was never meant for this. It was a general-purpose aircraft, a jack-of-all-trades built by the New Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation in Australia. It was based on an American trainer, the NA-16. And as Brooks looks up, he sees what it is being asked to fight. They are not just specs. They are a force of nature. 109 Japanese aircraft, launched from the carriers Kaga and Akagi, the same veterans of Pearl Harbor. They are Mitsubishi A5SM Claude fighters, HED-3A Val dive bombers, and Nakajima B-5N Kate torpedo bombers, and leading them, glittering in the sun, are the legends. The Mitsubishi A6M2, the Zero. The RAAF Snoke to 24 Squadron, commanded by Squadron leader John LaRue, had scrambled everything they had. 8 Wirraways, a handful of obsolete Hudson bombers. It wasn't a defense force, it was a sacrifice. On the Japanese carriers, the pilots of the Kaga Air Group had been briefed. They expected resistance. What they found as they descended upon Rabaul was confusion. In the cockpit of his Zero, Petty Officer First Class Saburo Sakai strains his eyes. He sees the Australian planes rising to meet them. He blinks. He looks again. Are these trainers? They are slow. They have fabric-covered control surfaces. They are not the sleek all-metal P-40s or Buffaloes they had fought elsewhere. They are two-seaters with a rear gunner frantically trying to aim a single, flexible machine gun. The Japanese pilots, men who had tested their skills over China, who had struck the killing blow at Pearl Harbor, could not believe their eyes. The laughter and mockery over the Japanese radio network would be recorded later. They were being met by flying schoolhouse planes. For Flight Lieutenant Brooks, the sky explodes. The Zeros don't just attack. They descend upon them like hawks on pigeons. Brooks shoves the throttle forward, but the Wirraway has no more to give. It's red-lined at perhaps 200 miles per hour, while the Zeros dance around him at over 300. He sees a Zero flash past, its grey-green camouflage a blur. He hammers the triggers, his 2 forward-firing .303 Vickers machine guns, rifle caliber, hopelessly inadequate, spit a stream of tracers. He watches them ping harmlessly off the Zero's fuselage. The Zero pilot doesn't even bother to evade. He simply climbs, vertical, hangs in the air as if suspended by a wire, and then falls back onto Brooks's tail. The world dissolves into the sound of a high-speed cannon. The whump, the whump, the whump. Sammy Red screams over the intercom as 20mm explosive shells tear the Wirraway's tail to ribbons. Unlike the 303s, these Japanese cannons don't just punch holes, they detonate on impact. The fabric, the light metal frame, it vaporizes. I'm hit! Oh God, I'm hit! Brooks shoves the stick, trying to dive, trying to do anything, but the controls are gone. They are just loose, useless sticks in his hands. The Wirraway, its tail assembly shredded, begins an uncontrollable spin. He looks back. Sergeant Reed is slumped over his Vickers K gun. Brooks is one of the lucky ones. He manages to bail out, his parachute snapping open just in time to watch his aircraft disintegrate. He floats down into the shark-infested waters of Simpson Harbour a spectator to the annihilation of his squadron. In 10 minutes, it is over. Of the 8 Wirraways scrambled, 6 are shot down. The remaining 2 are so badly damaged they are written off. The Zeros and bombers then descend on Vunakano airfield, destroying the remaining aircraft on the ground. By the end of the day, Rabaul's air defense has ceased to exist. The Japanese? They have not lost a single aircraft to enemy fire. The Battle of Rabaul sets a grim precedent. The Wirraway is not just inferior, it is a joke. A death trap. Japanese pilots, returning to their carriers, file their reports. The Australians, they say, are so desperate they are sending their trainees up to die in aircraft that shouldn't even be allowed near a combat zone. The word Wirraway, an Aboriginal word meaning challenge, is now whispered by RAAF pilots with black humour. This is the machine that Australia has to defend itself with. And Japan is not stopping at Rabaul. Their next target is the island of New Guinea itself. Their objective, Port Moresby. And standing in their way, at a dusty, forgotten airfield named Kila Kila, is another RAAF squadron. No, 4 Squadron, Army Cooperation. Their primary aircraft? The CAC Wirraway. The Japanese pilots, flushing with victory and arrogance, are preparing for another easy hunt. They have laughed at the Wirraway. They believe they have broken the back of Australian air power. They are about to learn what happens when you push a desperate man, even one in an inferior machine, into a corner. The battle for New Guinea is about to begin, and the Wirraway, the obsolete trainer, is about to find its moment of truth. Not in the high-altitude duels of fighters, but in the mud, the jungle, and the treetops. March 1942, Moresby, New Guinea. The heat is a physical weight. Kila Kila Airfield isn't an airfield so much as a scar carved from the red-brown earth, a place of dust in the dry and sucking mud in the wet. And it is always wet. This is the new home of Rabaul Squadron, RAAF, and they are not fighter pilots. They are Army Cooperation. In the humid, open-air briefing hut, Squadron leader John Paddy Jackson stares at his map. The blue of the Coral Sea looks peaceful, but the green of the Owen Stanley Range looks like a diseased spine. Malaria, dysentery, and fungal infections are thinning his ground crews faster than any enemy action. His pilots are not aces. They are observers. Their job is to be the eyes for the Australian infantry, the diggers, who are now desperately trying to form a defensive line against the inevitable Japanese advance. Their aircraft, the Wirraway, is perfect for this, and perfectly awful for what is coming. In the cockpit of his Wirraway call sign P for Pop, Pilot Officer Adrian Goldsmith checks his instruments. He and his observer, Sergeant A.M. Cole O'Brien, are preparing for a TACR, a tactical reconnaissance flight. Their loadout is not about dogfighting. They carry a few small 20-pound bombs for nuisance raids, and, in the rear cockpit, O'Brien has his maps, his binoculars, and his single Vickers K machine gun. The Wirraway's Wasp engine coughs to life, a cloud of blue smoke whipped away by the humid breeze. Goldsmith and O'Brien don't talk about Rabaul. Everyone knows. They know that if they see a zero, the procedure is simple. Dive for the trees, pray. Right! Cole! Goldsmith's voice crackles, trying to sound cheerful. Let's go count 'em. Their mission is to fly low over the Japanese-held village of Leh. They are to count barges, spot troop movements, and map out machine gun nests. This is not a job you do at 20,000 feet. It's a job you do at 200. Goldsmith lifts P for Pop off the rough strip, the airframe groaning. He holds the aircraft low, barely skimming the top of the jungle canopy. This is their only defense. The Wirraway, painted in a patchwork of foliage green and earth brown, becomes just another shadow flitting over the endless, suffocating green. Down here, the world is a claustrophobic blur of leaves, vines, and steam rising from the jungle floor. Goldsmith is flying under the weather, his wingtips occasionally brushing the tops of towering ironwood trees. There, O'Brien shouts, pointing, below, through a break in the trees. They see the glint of the Huon Gulf, and then the target, Leh. It is swarming. Japanese transports are in the harbour. Barges are moving men and supplies to the beach. A small formation of HE-Val dive bombers is parked wingtip to wingtip on the captured airstrip. It's an intelligence gold mine. O'Brien is frantic, scribbling notes, his voice a steady stream of coordinates and counts. Barges. 20, maybe 30. Troop concentration on the beach. Looks like a full battalion. Fuel dump. West of the strip. Ah, got it. Coal, Goldsmith mutters, his eyes scanning the sky. He is tense, every muscle locked. This low, a single mistake, a moment of inattention, means planting the aircraft into a hillside. But the sky is what terrifies him. They are slow, they are low, and they are noisy. They are ringing the dinner bell, as if summoned. A glint of silver appears, high and to the east, catching the morning sun. Skipper? Bogies? 11 o'clock high? O'Brien's voice is flat. All the adrenaline has drained out of it, replaced by cold certainty. Goldsmith doesn't even look. He doesn't need to. He knows what they are. Zeros. Hold on, coal? Goldsmith does the one thing a fighter pilot is trained never to do. He doesn't climb. He doesn't turn to fight. He dives. He shoves the Wirraway's nose down, aiming for the darkest, most impenetrable part of the jungle. The Wasp engine screams in protest as he drops, pee-for-pop, into a narrow, winding river valley. He's now flying below the level of the treetops. The jungle canopy closes over them like a lid. The Zero pilots, cruising at 15,000 feet, see the Wirraway disappear. They bank, searching. From their altitude, the jungle is a uniform green carpet. The Wirraway is gone, swallowed. To them, it's just another obsolete aircraft that fled the fight. They are not impressed. They have bigger targets in Moresby. Back in the valley, Goldsmith is fighting for his life. The Wirraway, never designed for such low-level aerobatics, is being hammered by turbulence. He yanks the aircraft in a 60-degree bank following the serpentine twist of the river, his wingtip just feet from the rock walls. O'Brien, looking back, sees nothing but green, no zeros, not this time. After 20 minutes of the most terrifying flying of his life, Goldsmith coaxes the Wirraway back up to 200 feet and makes a desperate, weaving run for home. When they land at Kila Kila, Pee-for-Pop is slick with mud and its wings are shredded with leaves and small branches. Goldsmith's hands are shaking so badly he can't undo his harness, but O'Brien has the maps. He has the counts. The intelligence is delivered. This is the reality for Squadron. They are not hunters. They are the hunted. They are the bait. They live in the treetops, in the mud, in the domain of the infantry. They are learning a new kind of flying, born of pure desperation. And the Japanese are still coming. The land invasion of Moresby, the brutal Kokoda Track campaign, is beginning. The diggers on the ground are about to be pushed to their breaking point, and their only air support, their only hope for reconnaissance and a friendly voice from above, is the slow, steady, and vulnerable Wirraway. The Japanese High Command, noting the lack of air resistance, is confident. The push for Port Moresby will be swift. They begin moving their forces, including Ki-43, Oscars, and Ki-44 Tojos, to their forward air bases. The skies over New Guinea are about to become the most contested airspace in the world, and the Wirraway is still there, flying its daily, suicidal missions. The mockery continues, but for the men of WWII Squadron, survival is its own kind of victory. They're about to prove that skill and courage are not measured in horsepower, but in the will to fly back into the jungle, day after day. October 26, 1942, 400 feet above the Kokoda Track. The jungle canopy is a rotting, green hell. From the air, it looks solid, but Pilot Officer John Jack S. Archer knows what's beneath it. He can almost smell the cordite, the mud, and the death down there in the sucking mud and razor-sharp kunai grass. The Australian 39th Battalion is fighting for its life against the Japanese South Seas Detachment. This isn't a war of airfields and harbours anymore. It's a war of slit trenches and jungle paths. Right. Gibbo! Archer's voice crackles over the intercom to his observer. Sergeant G. C. Gibbo Gibson! They want us to look at the Eora Creek crossing. Diggers are pinned down. They think there's a Nambu nest on the ridge. Roger, Skipper, Gibson replies, his hands already on the Vickers K-gun, his eyes scanning the endless green. Not much to see but trees. That's the job, mate. Archer banks their Wirraway, call sign K for King. The aircraft feels stable, reliable. It's slow, but down here, slow is good. Slow means they can actually see what the infantry needs them to see. This is the Wirraway's true calling. It was never meant to fight Zeros. It was meant to do this. Archer flies the aircraft in a tight pylon turn, his port wing pointed straight at the ground. He's holding the Wirraway at just above its stall speed, the engine growling, the controls mushy. He's practically hovering, a noisy 4-ton target for anyone with a rifle. "There!" Gibson shouts, pointing. 2 o'clock. See the smoke, just by that waterfall? Archer sees it, a faint wisp of blue-grey smoke, a cooking fire, or a machine gun nest. Right. Calling it in. Gibson gets on the wireless, relaying the coordinates to the Australian artillery battery miles back. This is the Army cooperation in action. The Wirraway is the forward observer for the 25-pounder guns. They circle again, and again. For the diggers on the ground, the sound of the Wirraway's Wasp engine is the sound of hope. It's their aircraft. It's the only friendly thing in a sky that usually rains down Japanese bombs. Suddenly, the air around K for King is filled with green lines, tracers. "Ground fire!" Archer yells, shoving the throttle forward and banking hard. Pop, pop, pop. He feels the bullets strike the underside of the fuselage, a sound like a hammer hitting an oil drum. "Buggers are on the ridge, I'm all right!" Gibson shouts, and firing his single Vickers back into the jungle. It's a hopeless gesture, but it makes him feel better. Archer nurses the damaged plane back towards Moresby. When they land, the ground crew finds 6 .30 caliber holes in the belly. The Wirraway, with its robust, simple construction, has taken the hits and brought its crew home. A Zero would have exploded. A Spitfire's liquid-cooled engine would have seized. But the Wirraway just leaks a bit of oil, gets patched up, and is ready to fly again by morning. The Japanese pilots are starting to notice. These trainers are annoying. They're everywhere. They're spotting for artillery, strafing supply columns, and dropping small bombs with infuriating accuracy. They're like mosquitoes in a hot tent, easy to kill but impossible to get rid of. And the Japanese pilots are killing them. When a Wirraway is caught in the open, it still stands no chance. The kill-to-loss ratio is catastrophic, but the men of Nubstra 4 Squadron are no longer the terrified rookies of Rabaul. They have become the most skilled low-level high-risk pilots in the Pacific. They know every valley, every ridge, every shadow. They are learning to use the Wirraway's one advantage. It can turn on a sixpence. In a high-speed fight, it's a coffin, but in a low-speed, low-altitude knife fight, it has a chance. This is the lesson that Pilot Officer Archer is about to teach. December 11th, 1942, over the Gona beachhead. The land battle has turned. The Australians are pushing the Japanese back to the sea. Archer and Gibson are again providing reconnaissance, spotting for the attack on the last Japanese stronghold. The air's thick with smoke from artillery. Archer, flying K for King, is at 1,000 feet when Gibson's voice comes over the radio. Ice cold. "Skipper, bogey, 1 o'clock. Low." Archer looks. It's not a Zero. It's a Mitsubishi Ki-43 Oscar, the Japanese Army's top fighter. It's light, fast, and lethally maneuverable. And it's coming straight at them. The Japanese pilot sees the Wirraway and makes the same mistake his naval counterparts have been making for a year. He sees an easy kill. A trainer. He doesn't climb for an altitude advantage. He just points his nose at the Wirraway and opens fire. Tracers flash past Archer's canopy. There is no jungle to dive into, no trees to hide behind. The ocean is on one side, the flat beachhead on the other. Archer has 2 forward-firing K303s. The Oscar has 2 12.7 Spion Ho 103 machine guns. Archer is flying a 1930s trainer. The Oscar is a 1941 state-of-the-art interceptor. This is not a fight. This is an execution. The Oscar flashes past, overshooting. The pilot clearly surprised by how slow his target is. He pulls up into a steep climbing turn, ready to come back down and finish the job. "He's coming around!" "Jack!" Gibson screams, swiveling his single gun. "What do we do?" Archer grips the stick. He remembers Rabaul. He remembers the mockery, or he remembers the weeks of being hunted. "We're not running, Gibbo," Archer says, his voice a low growl. He yanks the Wirraway into a turn so tight the airframe screams in protest. He is not turning away from the Oscar. He is turning into it. The Japanese pilot, halfway through his elegant high-speed loop, looks down and sees the trainer charging straight at him, head on. The Japanese pilot in the Ki-43 Oscar is a hunter. He has killed P-40s. He has killed Hudsons. He has seen these slow, ridiculous trainers before, and they are nothing more than target practice. He holds his 12.7mm gun steady, aiming for the big, round, vulnerable engine of the Wirraway. But Pilot Officer John Jack S. Jackson is not a fighter pilot. He is an Army cooperation pilot. He has spent months being hunted, hiding in valleys and flying at treetop level. He has survived by not being a hero. Now, he has no choice. He does not turn. He does not dive. He holds the Wirraway's nose level, its two Vickers guns pointed directly at the rapidly growing silhouette of the Oscar. "Firing!" Jackson yells, more to himself than to Gibson. He presses the trigger. A pathetic stream of .303 caliber tracers, just two guns, lances out across the 300 yards separating the two aircraft. They look like pinpricks against the sky. The Oscar pilot sees this and still does not waver. He opens fire. Whoom, pum, pum. The sound of the Oscar's heavy 12.7mm shells is deafening. They are not pinging like rifle bullets. They are exploding. Tracers the size of golf balls flash past Jackson's canopy. So close he flinches. One smashes into the Wirraway's thick starboard wing, tearing a huge, jagged hole. The aircraft shudders violently. "He's hit us! Jack, he's hit us!" Gibson yells. But Jackson is locked in. He's not aiming for the wings. He's not aiming for the fuselage. He's aiming for the one place he knows is vulnerable. The man behind the propeller. He holds the trigger down. The Wirraway, designed as a stable training platform, it doesn't shudder or waver. It is a perfect, steady gun platform. The Japanese pilot is now just 100 yards away. He can see the faces of the two Australians. He sees the trainer is not braking. He is the one who has to brake. His aircraft is unarmored to save weight. Jackson's 303s, so useless at a distance, are now at point-blank range, smashing into his cowling, his windshield. At the last possible second, the Oscar pilot yanks his stick to climb over the trainer. It is too late. Jackson's final burst of armor-piercing rounds rips straight through the Oscar's thin aluminum skin and into its engine block. The two planes pass so close that Gibson flinches, expecting a collision. For a moment, there is silence, broken only by the roar of Jackson's damaged Wasp engine and the wind whistling through the hole in their wing. "Did we get him? Gibbo?" Jackson gasps, his knuckles white. Gibson swivels in his turret, looking back. His voice is a stunned whisper. "My God, Skipper, you got him." The Oscar is not diving, it is not turning, it is simply falling. A thick black plume of smoke pours from its engine. The propeller is motionless. The aircraft rolls onto its back, a dead thing, and plunges straight into the mangrove swamps below the Gona beachhead. It does not explode. It is simply swallowed by the jungle. Gone. In the cockpit of K for King, there is no cheering, only the sound of two men breathing, the adrenaline making them shake so hard their teeth rattle. When Jackson nurses the battered Wirraway back to Kila Kila, the ground crew is aghast. The hole in the wing is big enough for a man to climb through, but the combat report is the real shock. A Wirraway had shot down an Oscar. The laughter stops. This single kill done DOSed on December 11th, 1942, becomes a legend. It is not just a kill. It is a message. It is the moment the name Wirraway, Aboriginal for challenge, is finally, truly earned. This victory is not an isolated incident. Across the New Guinea campaign, the Japanese are learning a new, grudging respect. They are learning that the men of No. 4 Squadron are not to be underestimated. These Australian pilots, flying an obsolete machine, have perfected the one tactic that can beat a superior fighter: turn into the head-on pass, use the Wirraway's stability as a gun platform, and trust that the Japanese pilot, in his unarmoured, lightweight plane, will brake first. The Wirraway is still a death trap. It is still the wrong plane for the wrong war. But in the hands of the desperate Jersey, skilled and suicidally brave men of the it has become a symbol. It is the symbol of Australian defiance. They have proven that it is not the machine, but the man who wins the fight. Early 1943, the skies over Moresby. The air war over New Guinea is changing. The throaty, familiar growl of the Wirraway's Wasp engine is now joined by new, more aggressive sounds. The high-pitched scream of the Allison engines in RAAF P-40 Kittyhawks and the guttural roar of the USAF's P-38 Lightnings. The tide has turned. The Japanese are in a full, bloody retreat. But the Wirraways of Nasser's 4 Squadron are still there. They are still flying. The kill by Jackson and Gibson did not magically transform the Wirraway into a superweapon. It remains, by every metric, an inferior combat aircraft. Losses are still a grim, fierce daily reality. But something fundamental has shifted. In the Japanese mess halls at Lae and Wewak, the pilots no longer tell jokes about the Australian trainer. They talk with grudging respect and a new caution. They speak of the head-on pass. They warn new pilots that while the Wirraway is slow, the men inside it are madmen, baka, who will not break off, who will fly straight through your propeller wash, and who seem to be protected by some suicidal determination. The mockery has evaporated, replaced by the simple, cold arithmetic of combat. The Wirraway's true victory was never about its kill-to-loss ratio. Its victory was time. Every day a Wirraway flew over the Kokoda Track, dodging treetops and ground fire to drop medical supplies to the diggers. It was a victory. Every time an observer like Cole O'Brien scribbled coordinates for an unseen Japanese gun, bringing down a rain of 25-pounder artillery shells, it was a victory. And every time a pilot like John Archer or Adrian Goldsmith nursed their battle-damaged, leaf-shredded, bullet-riddled trainer back to Kila Kila, patched it up, and flew it again the next morning, that was the greatest victory of all. They were the eyes of the infantry. They were the flying artillery. They were the constant, buzzing, infuriating presence that told the Japanese they would never own the jungle. The CAC Wirraway was born from a blueprint for a trainer. It was forced into a war it was never designed for, flown by men who were never meant to be fighter aces. It was an aircraft of corrugated metal, fabric, and a stubborn, reliable engine. And in the hands of the RAAF, it became a legend. It was the aircraft that held the line. It was the machine whose desperate, bloody sacrifice bought the precious months Australia needed for real fighters to arrive. The lessons learned in its cockpit, at 200 feet in a jungle valley, would define Australian tactical flying for the rest of the war. The Japanese pilots had laughed at the outdated machine. They learned, to their cost, that you should never laugh at the men inside it. This is the legacy of the Wirraway, a story of grit against impossible odds. These are the stories that define the spirit of the Australian digger and the RAAF pilot. If you believe this history deserves to be remembered, help keep these legends alive. Share this video with a friend, subscribe for more forgotten battles, and let us know in the comments which underdog story from the Pacific you want us to tell next.